Hello, it's Marnie from Happiness for Mothers, and today I'd like to talk about how sometimes we feel like we've lost a lot when we become a mother. We often feel like we've lost opportunities, we've lost social circles sometimes. Sometimes we feel we lose our profession, we lose opportunities, we sometimes lose our interests or our passions or the activities we used to do. You know, we can experience a lot of losses when we become mothers. It's a rite of passage, and a rite of passage means that we gain some and we lose some. And this whole period of gaining and losing can involve a lot of grieving. And it can also make us feel like we're trapped, right? Because we've lost what we used to have, we can feel trapped in the new life that we now find ourselves in. So I'd like to talk about the losses I experienced when I became a mother and how this void in my life actually was the incentive for me to find an even greater happiness, a happiness that no longer depended on external factors, a happiness that came from me, that was really aligned to who I am, my authentic self. So throughout my 20s, my main source of happiness was going to foreign cultures, both Quebec and different countries in Europe, and learning their languages, speaking to the locals in their languages, learning about different cultures, integrating myself into their culture, and just having a blast, right? All of my best friends in my 20s were from another culture, and I spoke different languages with them. So I spoke French with my friend from Quebec, and I spoke French with my friend from Bulgaria, and I spoke Hungarian with all my Hungarian friends, right? Like I basically was so fascinated in different cultures, in foreign cultures and in foreign languages. And I was fascinated in making friends with people from those cultures and who spoke those languages. But then we made the decision that we should move back to Canada to have children. I met a Hungarian husband, and we thought it would be a good idea to move close to my parents in Calgary, Canada. So it's in the west of Canada by the Rocky Mountains. And so we moved there when I was pregnant with my first child. And it was really hard because if you look on the map, Calgary is very, very far away from any foreign cultures or languages, right? Like a 4-hour flight to Quebec, and I think even longer to go to Mexico because of the transfer, and plus the money to get there. So I was very, very restless in the first few years of motherhood. For one, I had never really made friends with Canadians, North Americans. I didn't find them very interesting. Or maybe it was just I found them to be superficial, and I didn't know how to get under the superficial level to get at kind of the person they were inside. But anyway, I didn't know really how to connect with North Americans. I was not interested in North American culture. And so I would learn Japanese for a few weeks and then give up. Japan's too far away. I'd learn Chinese for a few weeks and give up. And I was so restless. I remember in the evening I'd be pacing around, and my husband said, "Don't you have any hobbies?" And I said, "Well, when I was a child, I did music. I'm not really interested in that anymore. In my 20s, I traveled and learned languages and learned about different cultures, and I'm so far away right now, right?" And but then the coolest things started to happen. So there was a gap in my life, right? A gap of where was I going to find my passions, my interests, my happiness. And I started reading. Well, first I started watching TED Talks, and I was like, oh yeah, I used to love university lectures, all the social sciences. I just love learning about people. But I never really pursued it. I'd only ever read about languages, right? And so I started reading books. I started becoming fascinated with North American culture. I realized my culture here at home is just as fascinating as any foreign culture. And I started having questions. Why do I feel so lonely here in North America? So I started reading about loneliness in North America, about individualism, about neoliberalism, about what a cool culture I was living in, right? And I started realizing, okay, this is why I feel lonely, all right? Let's try to not feel so lonely. Let's connect with people here anyway, right? And then I started wondering, well, why do North American women feel so much shame? Why do we feel not good enough in motherhood? Why do we feel like we're failing motherhood? Why do North American women never think they're beautiful enough, right? Why do North American women never think that they're young enough? Why do North American women suffer from so much shame? So I started having these questions, and I started reading in all kinds of social sciences, and I started realizing, wow, I'm finding an extremely high level of happiness right here on my couch that doesn't depend on where I am in the world. It doesn't depend on anything at all, because I can go to the library and get these books for free, right? I don't even have money. I don't need to have money to have this kind of happiness, right? And then I started finally making friends with North American women. And I found them fascinating, right? I said, okay, all you have to do is be vulnerable and go under the surface. And then these North American mothers and women are just as fascinating as any person in any other foreign culture. And so I got a headset for my phone, and I started talking and philosophizing with my friends while I was doing laundry, while I was doing the dishes. So here I found it, my new source of happiness. It was reading about my own culture, about my mothering culture, about what makes people do what they do, what makes people feel what they feel, and in connecting with other people, no matter where they were from, because we're all fascinating. And so this is my story about, and now I'm back in Hungary. That's my house, right there. I live in a little village near Budapest, and I'm back in Hungary. But you know what was fascinating is when I moved back here, I could really care less where I was. I wasn't really interested in traveling. My Hungarian's kind of stagnated. My friends tell me that. Because I found a much, much deeper source of happiness. I found happiness within myself. I am happy now on my living room couch, right? And that's huge. And it was motherhood. It was the void of motherhood that gave me this. It was that feeling of loss that made me try to find what it was that was going to make me really happy. Because, you know, in my 20s, I really loved learning languages and I loved traveling, but I was finding happiness outside of me. I would learn a language and I'd get used to the people, and then I'd get restless again. I'd need to move on. And then I'd go to another country, learn the language, make friends with the people, and then I'd have to move on. And even teaching English, you know, it wasn't giving me much joy because I wasn't even that interested in my own language and my own culture, right? Like, so I was just this restless being. It wasn't real happiness. It was always dependent on external factors. And so motherhood allows us gives us the space, gives us the void. We do go through grief, but it also gives us an opportunity to figure out, how can I find happiness right here, right now, right inside of me? I hope this was helpful. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.